The Supreme Court will make its decision on President Trump's tariffs, and the president is not holding back. He says striking them down could destroy the economy and cost the U.S. more than $3 trillion. Tariffs have become the backbone of President Trump's economic strategy, generating nearly $200 billion in revenue this fiscal year alone, and could even fund that $2,000 tariff dividend the president is pitching. Jonathan, we've talked a lot this week that stimmy season should be over.
Right.
But curious your thoughts on this tariff dividend and then really tariffs in general.
Sure. Well, I mean, the irony is that the so-called tariff dividend, most Americans now are already paying more for goods and services. So maybe they're getting back some of what they're paying. Look, Americans are paying the tariffs. Tariffs are taxes paid by American importers. We've talked a lot about this. What I just think is so interesting from a historic perspective is that the countries with the highest tariffs tend to have the lowest incomes. Now, I know correlation does not show causation,
Correct.
but the freest economies, those with the most open trade policies, also tend to be the most wealthy, not just for the well-to-do, but for the average citizen as well.
David, some concerns, and I hear you, is it isn't evenly split that Americans are paying the tax or American importers are. We've talked about some Federal Reserve estimates that show a 30-30-30 split all the way down, or in some cases, you go all the way down the supply chain. By the time you get to me, it's like 2%, or whatever. So how do you view that?
Well, first of all, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, I think what the president is getting to, although I wish he'd go full hog and just give the money back, there's a lot of questions about whether this is a tax or not, and you mentioned it and so forth. Well, if it is a tax, the refund of about $2,000, if you divide 158 million taxpayers by the extra amount of revenue coming in from the tariffs, it adds up to about $2,000 per taxpayer. Now, he wants to divide it. He wants to just give it to lower income taxpayers. I think it might just be better for simplicity and for the sake of the Supreme Court decision just to give it all back. He wants to also use some of it to pay down the debt, which would be about this much. You'd have to have a microscope compared to the debt.
Yeah, but little something's better than nothing.
I don't think so, because once it goes back into so-called paying off the deficit, it gets lost in that mushy pit of marshland that Washington, D.C. is sucked into.
Yeah. The mushy pit gets a little...
No, it doesn't, because they would use the money, if it's back in the hands of the taxpayers to whom the money belongs. I think we're all better off. And also, of course, it does address the affordability crisis that a lot of people suggest is helping socialists win some elections.
Jackie is vigorously taking notes. Defend your position, Jackie.
Well, where you started is where I question, is this truly a tax? Did the countries and the companies overseas that were bringing goods here, did they bear the brunt of it? Did corporations absorb their portion of it? And did just a small portion of it that you basically could contribute or attribute to sort of negligible attrition end up at the consumer level? I'm in that group. Prices are high on things, but they haven't gone up in a way that has made me think, wow, tariffs are really having this impact that Jerome Powell, for example, has said that they would. And so if it's not a tax, then the Supreme Court should essentially leave the whole situation in place. I don't think that they will. And I think the president is trying to allocate or spend this money so that once they tell him he's got to do something with it, reallocate it in some way, he's done what he wants to do with it, as opposed to doing what the Supreme Court wants him to do with it. But to this thing of who does it belong to, which is separate from whether it's a tax or not, allocating it to just low-income earners who probably, if then you do think it was a tax, who probably didn't pay into it more than you or I did, but yet for some reason we're stuck out in the cold, feels really unfair. So at least the one thing that you could say about our debt is that we all own that, right? We all own it, and if you pay it down, everybody's being represented in some way. I think that it's quite a mess. I'm curious to see what the court is going to do on this. But then there's this also aspect of what Trump did just with the instruments of tariffs in general. And I've said this before, which is I think he's made a lot of progress on trade and other countries taking us more seriously, that regardless of whether it's papered or not, will still stand as long as he's in the White House. And so I see him winning regardless of it because of the stance that he took, putting the hammer down and saying to countries, you're not going to take advantage of us anymore. And I think they truly understand that now.
Especially, Brian, when there are other methods, other statutes that the president can use. So this may all be sort of a moot point, given that, to Jackie's point, if there's other methods and we're still taken more seriously on the global stage, what is the conversation that we're even having?
It's not totally a moot point, because what the president likes with IEEPA is he can walk into a negotiation, sit across the table, and the person across the table has no idea what he could do. He could do anything. He could do 100% tariffs. He could 200%. He could do nothing. IEEPA is a wide open door. So I get why he's fighting for that as the guy at the table.
Yeah.
He's a negotiator. He wants everything in his pocket that he can use. Losing IEEPA, if the Supreme Court says it's a tax, and I do think it's a tax, even if it's not borne by the consumers. If it's borne by companies, it's still a tax on companies. I think the Supreme Court is, because this is the hand they've shown, they don't like to give the executive branch massive scope on grants of power from Congress. So I think it's possible he will lose, but I do not think it's catastrophic for his agenda. It just means when he shows up at the negotiating table, instead of saying, I could do anything, he'll be able to do almost anything. And I think he's still going to be able to push his agenda through with the other trade statutes that he has available.
Yeah, that's why I just don't get the scare tactics. I mean, tariffs have been coming down in this country basically since the 1950s, and wealth has grown as tariffs have come down. So this notion of, well, if the president does have this unrestricted power, Brian, to your point, to wake up and say, you know what, I'm pissed at the president of Canada or the prime minister of Canada, I'm going to throw in an extra 10%. I mean, that's whim. That's not policy. That's one person's opinion.
But I think you're characterizing our economic experience in this world where tariffs have come down and missing some of the pieces people care about. Like, what kind of jobs are available in America? What's happened to working men? What's happened to families in middle America? And they would say you're painting an aggregate picture that misses some of these pockets where some policy might be able to help. That's the argument.
Well, I mean, the policy is costing, at least I think according to the Tax Foundation, about $1,700 per family in terms of the money that they're paying because of the tariffs. So, I mean, someone's paying the tariffs, and it's not...
Which, by the way, is almost exactly equal
to what they
to
get
the
back.
money that you would get back if he just gave a rebate, gave all the tariff revenue to the American taxpayer.
Or we all wait until April for our good big tax refunds, thanks to the big, beautiful bill, right? That's coming. I also just quickly wanted to point out, it does look like Trump might be meeting tonight with some Wall Street executives, Jamie Dimon included in there, as he thinks about who he's sitting down across the table from, what ideas business leaders have for him in this country as we think about our economic picture going forward. This is a fun one, you guys. Pull up Coinbase. Now, it's a stock story, but this is really so much of a corporate story. Do you guys know where I'm going with this? They filed with the SEC to reincorporate from Delaware to
Texas.
Says it right there.
Bingo. Brian, it's cheating if you
Well, it
read
was on the
bottom
screen.
of the
I'm supposed to look at the screen. That's my job.
Chirons are kind of
So
hard to
just
ignore.
quickly listen to what the company had to say. They've cited concerns about Delaware's current business environment. And the chief legal officer said that Delaware has historically been known for predictable court outcomes, respects corporate board judgment, and speedy legal resolutions. All of that now on shaky ground. Jackie, my fellow lawyer.
I think this is a testament to what the spirit of business is right now. And that is to go to Texas, to go to Florida, to go to Tennessee, and to really sort of buck what has happened over the course of the last 4 years. And they're being given an environment where they can do that and not be penalized for it. And so they will do what's best for them.
Jonathan, quickly, when companies do this, does that change how you view stocks?
Well, isn't it interesting? A lot of companies are following the same paths that many Americans have been taking, basically moving from highly regulated, highly taxed blue states to less regulated, less taxed red states. And you know what? If it can help any of these companies make more money, more profit, you'll have more jobs, more wealth creation for all. So
and if it can help blue states wake up to what they're doing wrong. It'll help everybody.
Good luck
too.
with that, David.
I know. I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
Once again, though, it's Elon Musk who's sort of trailblazing this issue, and other corporations all follow.